Is saturated fat killing you? My name is Patrick Rooney with Old School, oldschoolus.com. I've been dealing with the issue of fat, and especially, particularly saturated fat, for some time now. I've been really starting to really look into it. I've had some. I'm 59 now, and I'm a personal trainer and a health coach, and generally very good health. I mean, I'm doing great, certainly for my age, and I'm doing great in general. But I've had a few issues that have been kind of like getting at me for some time that I haven't quite figured out. One of them, I've had some digestion issues. I've had some skin breakouts, especially when I eat certain types of food. And lately, some of the issues have been getting worse. For instance, I've had several instances of kidney stones. I've had past kidney stones several times fairly recently. And that ain't no joke. You don't want to pass kidney stones if you can help it. You definitely want to find a way around that. So there's another issue I've had recently is I've had some pain in the lower abdomen area, in the appendix area. It's the lower abdominal area on the right side. I've had issues there as well. Sometimes quite a bit of pain there in the morning. I'd have a big meal, or maybe just a regular meal at night, but it had a certain amount of fat in it, especially saturated fat. And I'd wake up, and once I sat up in bed in the morning, it didn't really bother me too much while I was sleeping. Although sleeping off, a big meal, definitely you're not going to get your full sleep. But once I would sit up in bed in the morning, everything would start to go, drop down. The gravity would kind of move the food down, and I would get tremendous pains. And so I started really looking into this. What is causing this? So I started really watching my foods. Now, I've always been a kind of like big on eating fat and saturated fat. I always thought it was fine. I always thought anybody who kind of went after fat was kind of something wrong with them. They have like modern thinking, and some of their modern thinking didn't make sense versus what I thought was correct traditional thinking as far as fats go. Because everything I've read is telling me that American Indians ate a lot of fat. They ate the whole part of the animal when they killed. And a lot of our ancestors, depending on where you read, depending on who's telling you this, but what I was reading was a lot of our ancestors were eating a fairly high degree of fat. And even the bodybuilders of old, were very strong guys, amazing people. They were eating full fat milk and meat with a fair amount of fat in it, butter and all sorts of things. And they seem to do very well. Now, it may be that they were just so active. I mean, these guys were doing a lot of central nervous system work, a lot of compound movements with the barbells that aren't done as much these days in bodybuilding circles. So that may have had something to do with it. I don't know. The point is, I've always kind of traditionally thought that a high amount of saturated fat was actually okay. I mean, I grew up loving hamburgers and cheeseburgers and spaghetti with meat sauce. They were like my favorite meals growing up. And I did that even as an adult and didn't think that much about it. But again, pain will get your attention really quick. And no matter what I thought in my head or no matter what I read in books, I read a lot of paleo stuff, primal type stuff that would tell me it was okay to eat, high fats and things like that. And of course, now you have keto. Not all keto people, I don't believe, are eating high saturated fat necessarily, but a lot of them are. In any case, so that's where I'm at right now. Now, in looking at this, what is it that some of the health experts will say? So, for instance, the American Heart Association, their amount of fat, of saturated fat that they say that you're supposed to eat is a maximum of 13 grams of saturated fat a day. That comes out to about 7% of a person's diet, plus or minus. So it's not necessarily a lot, but it's not necessarily a little either. To give you an example of how that of another kind of diet that that has a lot of fat but not a lot of saturated fat is the Mediterranean diet. Mediterranean diet is a very interesting diet because it's been known traditionally as a healthy diet. And every year, even this last year, it was ranked, I believe even this current year, it's ranked as the top diet. And that diet has a lot of fat in it, but it does not have a lot of saturated fat. The fats that you get in a Mediterranean diet will come from, olives, olive oil, fish, omega-3, avocados, things like that. So you're getting, nuts. These are unsaturated, these are not saturated fats, not animal fats. So it's a little bit different. It's maybe a lot different actually in what it does to your body. The difference between saturated fat and a fat that is not saturated. So in any case, I tracked my saturated fat. I tracked pretty much everything. I'll go periods of time where I'll track everything I eat. And sometimes I'll do it online. I'll use chronometer.com, which I think is great. There's also MyFitnessPal and many, many others. I like chronometer.com because it tracks my macronutrients, which we're talking about right now, fats, but it also tracks micronutrients. So your smaller nutrients, your minerals and your vitamins and things of that nature. So I really like it. So anyway, I looked at Chronometer and looked over a period of time. I looked at a good month of time, especially when I was having some, major issues. And sure enough, I found a very high saturated fat usage during that time. And in fact, during that time, I was going over the recommended limits like on a regular basis. And I would see it, but I thought, hey, these experts don't know what they're talking about. I'm not really worried about going over the limits on my saturated fat. Well, looking back, I can say perhaps I should have been. I'll give you an idea of what I was eating, and you may be doing the same, but this is just an idea, a general idea of typical things I might have during just some morning time. Now, I would eat turkey dogs. I would eat Jennie-O jumbo turkey dogs. And they're delicious, by the way. I love fatty meats. I mean, it's absolutely delicious. It's probably one of my favorite foods. Now, I would eat, the recommended serving for that would be one turkey dog. So I would eat a couple of them usually. And so they would have as a total for two Jennie-O jumbo turkey dogs, the total would be 5 grams of saturated fat. A pretty good amount. Now, if I add eggs to that, generally, I would have a couple eggs, and let's just say they were just hard boiled. So they're just in water. I wasn't even cooking them in oil or anything. So 2 hard boiled eggs, that would be 1.5 grams of saturated fat each. That would equal 3 grams right there. Now, if I had them in coconut oil, which I sometimes would, that's another whole bunch of saturated fat. That may be a different subject because, again, coconut oil is perhaps, it's somewhat different. It's obviously not an animal fat, so it likely works in your body a little bit differently. On the other hand, it is saturated fat, and the American Heart Association is not big on coconut oil. And I'm not saying the American Heart Association is necessarily the end-all, be-all, but I'm just using some guidelines here. And hey, these guys are in the heart industry, and the heart and fat are very important things that go to go together. So. They have an interest, at least, in heart health. Okay, so if I added, let's say I added some cheddar cheese, shredded cheese. Maybe if I added let's say a 1/4 cup of cheddar cheese, that's 5 grams of fat right there in addition. And let's say I threw in peanut butter, love peanut butter, and eat it just about every day. If I ate a couple of tablespoons of that, which is a serving, that would be another 2.5 grams of fat. So if I added all the things I just mentioned to you without not even mentioning the coconut oil, let's say I didn't have any coconut oil, which is 11 grams, a tablespoon of coconut oil is 11 grams of saturated fat by itself. That would get you almost to the 13 gram limit the American Heart Association talks about in a day of your 7%. So let's just throw that out for a minute and say we didn't have any coconut oil that day. It would still, what I just told you I ate, would go over the limit of the 13 grams and give you 13.5 grams of saturated fat. And that's just the morning time. That's just basically my breakfast and it certainly could be more than that for breakfast. That's just part of my breakfast. I work out hard and I eat a lot, so that's just part of my breakfast. Certainly not my whole day's food by any means. So what is the takeaway here? You might be watching this and saying, hey, I eat a lot of fat, I eat a lot of saturated fat, I don't have any problems. I think of in my head people saying, I can picture maybe some of the comments, my grandmother ate, lard and, bacon every day or whatever, her whole life, and she lived to be 100 or something. Obviously, there's always stories and there's always exceptions to the rule or whatever. And all I'm telling you, whatever I'm saying is here, don't listen to me because I'm just, so-called expert who's talking to you on YouTube. And don't really listen to anybody because they tell you something. I'm just telling you, hey, watch out for certain things that may be issues. Now, again, I'm 59 now. And this has not been a major issue for me. The kind of issues I'm having now have not come out until very recently. So it may, have a lot to do with, getting older, with people that are older. I think, she's watching things like this. Your fat is something that's very heavy. It's twice as heavy, basically, as a carb or a protein. It is hard to digest. Fats are by nature harder to digest than proteins and carbs. So anything that's hard to digest is making your system work. It's making your all your systems work. Your kidneys. I mean, for the kidney stones that I had, work. Your liver. All these things. Anything that has anything to do with digestion, it's making it work harder. And as you get older, your digestion is not generally as good anyway. So that's probably the time where you really need to watch this stuff the most. I think you need to watch it anyway. But if you're feeling something and you're getting a symptom based on what you're eating, I would pay very strong attention to that. Don't just listen to what somebody is saying to you as well about whatever it is. I mean, keto or paleo, or on the other side, maybe low fat, whatever it is. I'm just saying, watch it. When someone tells you something, pay attention just to watch it for yourself and see what makes sense to you. And again, if you are in pain, listen to pain. Pain is there for a reason. It doesn't just come up out of nowhere. It comes out for a reason. It's trying to tell you something. So anyway, I hope that you like this video and hit like on there. I'd appreciate that. Subscribe if you want to see these videos. Ring the bell as well if you want to get the videos right away. And then comment. I can imagine there'll be comments all over the board on this. This is one man's opinion here, based on my experience. As they say, your mileage may vary, but I would certainly like to hear your experience. I'd like to know if you've had this type of experience with eating a lot of saturated fat. Did something happen? And then if you changed your diet after that, did the problem go away? I'd really love to hear something like that. Anyway, go to oldschoolus.com. It's my website. My Greek Physique ebook is out again. I updated the whole book for 2020, and it's a great value for what you pay. You're going to get great value. You're going to get the benefit of my lifetime. I've been in fitness for about 45 years now of my life. So I've been in fitness for a long time. I know a lot of stuff that doesn't work. I can tell you how to avoid, get around injuries, and, I've had illnesses. I've had a couple of surgeries. I've had to overcome a lot of stuff. So I can teach you a lot that you don't have to necessarily go through by getting my ebook. Also, I do phone consultations and Zoom all over the world. So you can check my website for that as well. All right, I said enough, and I just want to give you some food, no pun intended here, but I'd like to give you a little food for thought today. So I really want to hear back from you on this one. So thanks again for being with me, and I look forward to talking to you next time.